Laura Tunbridge, Beethoven, A Life in 9 Pieces. Embark on a captivating journey through the life of Ludwig van Beethoven, one of history's most exceptional musical geniuses, in Laura Tunbridge's insightful book Beethoven, A Life in 9 Pieces. This summary will guide you through the composer's triumphs and struggles, unveiling the intricacies of his musical style and the profound impact he had on the world. Discover how Beethoven's relationships with his family, patrons, and contemporaries shaped his career, and learn about the remarkable stories behind 9 of his most significant compositions. With a blend of historical context and musical analysis, this summary offers an engaging and accessible exploration of Beethoven's life and enduring influence.
Beethoven's rise to musical fame. Born into a musical family in 1770, Ludwig van Beethoven showed prodigious talent from a young age. Under the patronage of Archduke Maximilian Franz, Beethoven honed his skills, impressing the likes of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart and Joseph Haydn in Vienna. Though war prevented his return to Bonn, Beethoven would continue to make a lasting impact on the musical world from his adopted home of Vienna. Ludwig van Beethoven entered the world in 1770, his birth date unknown, but his baptism on December 17 marking his existence. Raised by his father, Johann, Beethoven quickly outgrew his father's talents as the young prodigy surpassed expectations set by his demanding parent. Hailing from Bonn, Germany, there was a misconception about Beethoven's lineage due to the Flemish van in his name, which led people to believe he had ties to nobility. Reality was much humbler, as the Beethovens served the court in musical roles, with young Ludwig's grandfather heading the court music. Despite the lack of noble blood, Beethoven's exceptional talents brought him into the circles of nobility, as he became a substitute organist at the court at just 13 years old. Entering the chamber music ensemble of Archduke Maximilian Franz, his first benefactor, Ludwig understood the value of catering to his patron's preferences, as evidenced in his compositions emphasizing the viola, Maximilian's instrument of choice. At 16, Beethoven had the opportunity to visit Vienna, where the legendary Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart lived. During this trip sponsored by Maximilian, Ludwig wowed Mozart with his abilities on the piano, leaving a lasting impression on the older composer. Returning to Vienna in 1792, Beethoven found himself under the guidance of another revered composer, Joseph Haydn. By 1793, Haydn predicted his pupil's future rise to greatness in a letter to Maximilian. Beethoven's plans to return to his hometown of Bonn took a sharp turn with the ongoing chaos of the Napoleonic Wars. As Napoleon's army captured Vienna in 1794, Ludwig found himself unable to return home. However, fate had other plans, and this unexpected twist would eventually solidify Beethoven's status as one of history's most influential composers. Residing in Vienna for the remainder of his life, Ludwig van Beethoven's impact on the world of music is still felt to this day, leaving a legacy that resonates with every generation. Beethoven's Soaring Septet success. Beethoven's Septet, Op. 20, was his first major triumph, striking a chord with audiences in 1800 Vienna. Unlike his now popular symphonies and concertos, the septet captivated listeners due to its gentle dissonances and accessibility for home musicians. With echoes of Empfindsamer Still, a German sensitive style, it resonated with the fashionable sentimentality of the era and established him as a force in the music world. The turning point in Beethoven's career came when his septet, Op. 20, took center stage in Vienna in April of 1800. Following an 8-year uphill battle to secure a prestigious Academy concert at the Imperial and Royal Court Theatre, Beethoven's carefully curated program combined homage to musical greats Mozart and Haydn alongside his own innovative works. This decisive event represented Beethoven's debut of both his first symphony and the septet, with the latter quickly becoming an audience favorite. Although Beethoven would later be illustrious for his symphonies and concertos, the general public of his time did not receive these compositions with the same enthusiasm. However, the septet's premiere saw multiple interruptions due to overwhelming applause, and it soon found a permanent presence in Austrian violinist Ignaz Schuppanzig's chamber music concert series. So, what made the septet such a resounding success? By delicately balancing complexity and popular appeal, the septet appealed to diverse listener profiles. Its composition allowed for adaptation by amateur home musicians and fulfilled the needs of music publishers. Beethoven's financial situation underscored the importance of creating marketable, accessible music, and the septet achieved just that. The septet also embodied the artistic zeitgeist of the time, blending well with the German Empfindsamer still, or sensitive style. This gentle approach incorporated subtle dissonances and an undercurrent of longing, which deeply resonated with its audience. Furthermore, the septet's emotive qualities aligned with the romantic writings of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who was in vogue at the time for his exploration of sensitivity and feelings. In summary, the septet, Op. 20, represented a pivotal moment in Beethoven's life and career, striking a chord with Vienna audiences and heralding the arrival of a major new talent. Its lasting popularity rested upon its accessibility for home musicians, its harmony with contemporary artistic trends, and its ability to evoke feelings of longing and sensitivity. Among all the compositions showcased at Beethoven's First Academy, it was the septet that captivated listeners and cemented his status as a musical force. Unveiling Beethoven's social persona. Contrary to the popular brooding image of Beethoven, the renowned composer was a social and collaborative individual. His works, such as the famous Violin Sonata No. 9, Op. 47, Kreutzer, were often influenced by and designed for specific performers, including his friends. This demonstrates the value he placed on friendships, connections, and the cultural exchange within Vienna's thriving 18th-century scene. When one thinks of Beethoven, it's almost inevitable to picture a serious, frowning face that doesn't reflect his friendly nature. This misconception is largely due to the famous bust created by Franz Klein, which was made using a life mask with a rather uncomfortable process. However, looking past his letters and acquaintances, it becomes apparent that Beethoven was not a solitary, introverted genius, but a sociable man who enjoyed Vienna's various events and get-togethers. Beethoven's Ninth Violin Sonata, commonly known as Kreutzer, is a powerful testament to his collaborative spirit. He often composed music with specific performers in mind, such as Ignaz Schuppanzigh, who greatly impacted 8 of his sonatas. Beyond being a talented violinist, Schuppanzigh was also Beethoven's friend and a crucial figure in Vienna's cultural life. Their strong bond and shared humor was apparent as Beethoven nicknamed Schuppanzigh Falstaff, in reference to his sizable girth. The story behind Kreutzer Sonata underscores Beethoven's open-heartedness and collaboration. While the composition initially started as a piece to be performed by Schuppanzigh, Beethoven's introduction to George Polgreen Bridgewater, a gifted violinist, steered the sonata in a new direction. After witnessing Bridgewater's extraordinary skills, Beethoven adjusted the composition to showcase his virtuosity, making it exceptionally complex and challenging. First performed in 1803, the Kreutzer Sonata is a reflection of Beethoven's lasting connections upon arriving in Vienna. These bonds permeated not only his personal life but his work as well, resulting in creatively enriched compositions. However, as with any relationship, misunderstandings and disagreements still surfaced between Beethoven and his fellow musicians. This is evident in the fact that the sonata was dedicated to Rodolph Kreutzer, another violinist Beethoven respected. Despite their friendship, Kreutzer was not particularly fond of the piece, rejecting the dedication and choosing not to perform the sonata. Nonetheless, the nickname persisted. By challenging our notions of Beethoven's personality, a more accurate image emerges: a person who valued connections, engaged with others, and nurtured collaborative work under the canopy of Vienna's vibrant artistic scene. Through this perspective, we gain a greater understanding of the genius behind his iconic music. Beethoven's revolutionary Eroica. Beethoven, known for his genre-pushing compositions, crafted the groundbreaking Third Symphony, also called the Eroica. Its rule-breaking structure and beginnings of musical rebellion captured the spirit of the time, inspired by the French Revolution. Beethoven's relationship with Napoleon Bonaparte, a central figure of the era, is debated and complex. However, the symphony, initially dedicated to Napoleon, showcased Beethoven's desire to challenge listeners and defy conventions. Beethoven's rise to infamy by 1804 was primarily due to his penchant for composing intricate and convention-defying music, pushing the boundaries of what people expected from a symphony. One of his most famous works, the Kreutzer Sonata, received reviews describing it as whimsical, presumptuous, and ostentatious. Despite the mixed reception of his creations, Beethoven remained passionate and determined to explore new frontiers in music. Most people during that era listened to music at concerts like the Academy, where multiple compositions were performed as part of a program. Naturally, audiences could become restless when confronting unconventional, long, and intricate pieces. Beethoven, understanding this possibility, continued to challenge his listeners unapologetically. The Third Symphony, commonly referred to as the Eroica, breaks symphonic rules from the get-go, starting with two attention-grabbing bursts of the same chord and cellos sketching an E-flat major chord, which gets disrupted by violins entering off-beat in C-sharp. Additionally, the first movement is in triple time instead of the expected duple time. This innovative symphony consistently defied conventions, mirroring the spirit of the European revolutions unfolding around it. Highlighting these connections is Beethoven's consideration of dedicating his Third Symphony to Napoleon Bonaparte, who emerged as a key figure of the French Revolution. Beethoven's feelings towards Napoleon, however, remain the subject of debate with no definitive conclusion. The composer desired recognition and acclaim in France, evident in his previous dedication of a sonata to the French violinist Rodolphe Kreutzer. This act could be interpreted as a strategy to garner praise. Nevertheless, the complex relationship between Beethoven and Napoleon goes beyond mere attempts to win favor. When Beethoven began working on the Third Symphony around 1803, he likely had the audacious and charismatic Napoleon in mind. Beethoven even maintained a brief friendship with General Bernadotte, the French ambassador. It is entirely plausible that the composer initially held hope that Napoleon's revolution would lead to positive change for the common people. However, Beethoven's optimism faced a bitter blow when he discovered that Napoleon planned to crown himself emperor. In a display of disillusionment, Beethoven furiously scratched out the dedication to Bonaparte on his Third Symphony's title page, leaving a hole in the paper. His former student, Ferdinand Ries, noted that Beethoven felt betrayed by Napoleon's decision, believing the self-appointed emperor would eventually disregard human rights and indulge in his own ambitions. Upon its public debut on April 7, 1805, the Eroica generated mixed reactions. Some regarded it as a masterpiece, others felt its unconventionality diminished its beauty, and a third group considered it overly complicated and drawn out. Beethoven would continue to challenge and divide audiences with his fearlessly innovative music. Beethoven's defiant genius. In 1808, Vienna's orchestra consisted of non-professional musicians with limited practice time. Beethoven's ambitious compositions, focused on symphonies, challenged the audience and defied musical norms. Despite a disastrous premiere of choral fantasy, its experimental nature served as a stepping stone for the renowned Ninth Symphony, a grander version that melded orchestral and vocals together. Beethoven's work marked the rise of intellectually dissecting and discussing a composer's work. Vienna's orchestras of 1808 were a far cry from the skilled musicians we envision today. Back then, performers were people with everyday jobs who occasionally banded together to play music. Typically, they held only one rehearsal before a show, and mistakes during performances were all too common. As Beethoven grew more ambitious with his compositions, the musical demands on the performers increased. Sometimes he composed knowing a virtuoso would perform the piece, but not always. In his Third Academy Showcase, Beethoven debuted his Fourth and Fifth Symphonies along with 5 other selected works. Even staunch Beethoven enthusiasts left the lengthy showcase feeling that there could indeed be too much of a good thing. Cold December Vienna nights and Beethoven's focus on symphonies and his own music made the event peculiar. During that period, the public craved chamber music, dance compositions, and romantic piano performances, not symphonies. Despite knowing this, Beethoven was unyielding. He aimed to challenge the audience, whether they embraced it or not. His performance culminated in a piece called Choral Fantasy, which incorporated vocal soloing, an orchestra, and a solo piano. Unfortunately, poor conditions, coupled with limited rehearsal time and underprepared performers, contributed to the disastrous Choral Fantasy premiere. The singers shook more than sung, Beethoven scolded the clarinetists for errors, and the music halted abruptly after at least one jarring crash. Still, some forgiving reviewers discerned the value in the composition. A writer for the Allgemeine Musikalische Zeitung noted that only after listening repeatedly to a Beethoven piece, could one form a definite opinion. As the role of music critic emerged, intellectuals began dissecting and debating composers' works, an evolution driven by Beethoven's ambitious compositions. In retrospect, Choral Fantasy's experimental nature foreshadowed the monumental Ninth Symphony, particularly in its climactic Ode to Joy. Beethoven expanded on the Choral Fantasy's innovative melding of concerto and oratorio in his Ninth Symphony, eventually acknowledging it as a grander version of Choral Fantasy's style. Beethoven's Heart and Melodies. Beethoven, known for his iconic symphonies, also had a deeply emotional side, expressed through his lesser-known Lieder and Gesänge, composed for romantic love. His daily routine, passion for literature, and unrequited desires unveil the tender layers of the great composer. Beethoven, a man of talent with a strict daily routine, would rise early, savor a cup of coffee, and spend his mornings in creative pursuit. He took long walks during afternoons, carrying his notebook along, and frequented a café or tavern before bed. Unbeknownst to some, Beethoven was a devoted reader who admired Goethe. Their encounter allowed Goethe to remark upon Beethoven's incredible gift alongside his intractable personality. A common belief is that Beethoven's progressive hearing loss contributed to his reserved and moody demeanor. Although his piano-playing skills deteriorated around 1814, his spirit wasn't defeated. Beethoven's capacity for love and longing is reflected in his lesser-known compositions, including songs interweaved with delectable poetry. Beethoven's musical creations transcended symphonies as he composed numerous Lieder and Gesänge, melodies that shared deep affinities with poetry. While Lieder resonated with folk tunes, Gesänge held the grandiosity fitting for classical music. Unveil Juliet, or To the Beloved, is an emblem of this musical fusion. Its heartfelt sentiments echo the romantic despair in Goethe's masterpiece, The Sorrows of Young Werther, as lines like, I might drink the tears from your cheek, before the earth drinks them in, reveal the depths of longing. Beethoven's own unrequited love surfaced through his poetic inclinations. Among his love letters, the mystery behind Immortal Beloved has sparked endless inquiries since its introduction in his first biography. The identity of this beloved figure remains a subject of conjecture. However, the author hypothesizes that the letter surfaced around 1812, in the same period Beethoven composed Unveil Juliet. As the world continues to celebrate Beethoven's virtuosity, we discover a fragile and impassioned side of the legend as he composed poignant melodies of love. Through his daily habits, appreciation for literature, and expressions of affection, we are reminded of the man behind the genius, a man whose heart and soul were as intricate as his timeless compositions. Beethoven's turning point. In 1814, following Napoleon's defeat, Europe was alive with festivities, and Vienna celebrated Beethoven as its most distinguished composer. In the midst of this, Beethoven premiered a patriotic composition, Wellington's Victory, or The Battle at Vittoria, which gained immense popularity despite its controversial nature. This success allowed him to introduce his opera Fidelio, touching off a trend in realist operas. However, the subsequent deterioration of his personal life and health marked a turning point in Beethoven's career, leading to a period of tortured creativity. As Europe rejoiced after Napoleon's exile and the promise of peace in 1814, Vienna was bustling with visiting dignitaries and an array of events. Beethoven emerged as the city's most venerated composer, with his music being performed more than ever. Among his compositions, the most popular at that time was a stirring piece of patriotism called Wellington's Victory, or The Battle at Vittoria. Despite modern critics considering it heavy-handed, the work brought Beethoven widespread attention. This newfound popularity gave Beethoven the creative freedom to premiere new symphonies and release his long-awaited opera, Fidelio. The story centers around a woman who poses as a prison guard to save her imprisoned husband. Based on a true story and rooted in a French writer's work, Fidelio stirred controversy among Austrian censors. After several rounds of revisions, it finally debuted on May 23, 1814, and captivated audiences. However, the grueling process left Beethoven exhausted, making Fidelio his one and only opera. Fidelio's individual pieces, particularly the Mir ist so wunderbar quartet, gained independent recognition and sparked a trend in realist operas centered on grounded subject matter. However, Beethoven's personal life started to unravel around this turning point in his career. His health declined, his financial backers vanished, and the death of his brother forced him to take custody of his nephew Karl. Beethoven's turbulent relationship with Karl, possibly mirroring his harsh upbringing, only added to his struggles. Biographer David Wynne Jones highlights the irony in Beethoven's greatest success coinciding with the end of the Napoleonic Wars, only to be followed by a phase of tormented creativity. Beethoven's Hammerklavier, Evolution. The rapid advancement of instrument craftsmanship, specifically the piano, deeply impacted the work of Ludwig van Beethoven. In 1818, he received a state-of-the-art Broadwood piano from London, which facilitated the creation of his groundbreaking Piano Sonata No. 29, Op. 106, popularly known as the Hammerklavier. This piece is famous for its complexity and the final fugue, which defies traditional structure and can only be played by the most skilled performers. In the early 19th century, Beethoven's fame spread across Europe, even reaching the ears of London's Royal Philharmonic Society. They extended an invitation to the composer, which he declined, but their esteem led to the gift of a Broadwood piano, a cutting-edge instrument of that time. The rapid evolution of instruments, including the piano and violin, was a key factor in shaping Beethoven's compositions like the Septet, Op. 20 and the Kreutzer Sonata. Shifting from Viennese keyboards to the Broadwood brought exciting new possibilities for Beethoven's music. The modern piano featured heavier wire and deeper keys, making the sound louder and allowing for lower notes. This innovation directly influenced the composition of the Hammerklavier Sonata. However, its unique qualities led to a delay in its broad performance across Central Europe, as many other keyboards couldn't reproduce the specific notes. The name Hammerklavier has often been falsely attributed to the sonata's style, assuming it's due to the loud and aggressive technique required to play it. However, the term originates from the German description of the pianoforte, the instrument Beethoven used to create the Op. 101 and Op. 106 piano sonatas. Financial hardship, likely exacerbated by his nephew Karl's school fees, led Beethoven to be more accommodating when negotiating the publication of the Hammerklavier Sonata. He accepted alterations, such as omitting sections or altering the order of movements, and even allowed dedications to friends like Antoine Brentano, who had previously advised him in a legal case. The most significant element of the Hammerklavier is its final fugue, which revolutionized the traditional approach to composing fugues. Instead of adhering to a predictable pattern, Beethoven introduced a three-voice fugue. This bold, unexpected structure incorporated a range of dynamic elements and pushed the boundaries of what was considered conventional. As a result, this complex composition remains a challenge for all but the most skilled performers. The evolution of instruments like the Broadwood piano had a profound impact on Beethoven's work, providing him with new opportunities to explore and innovate. His groundbreaking Hammerklavier Sonata is a testament to the powerful connection between technology and art, and his ability to transform the musical landscape for generations to come. Unveiling Beethoven's Missa Solemnis. Beethoven's Missa Solemnis, Op. 123, initially composed for Archduke Rudolph's installation as Bishop of Olmütz in 1820, explores the fugue form and pushes the boundaries of conventional mass composition. Despite not being suited for its intended purpose, the piece delves into Beethoven's spirituality while also presenting his deeply rooted passion for musical experimentation, resulting in a majestic and unprecedented work of art. Beethoven, known for his ability to push musical boundaries, took the opportunity to experiment with the fugue form through his composition of Missa Solemnis, Op. 123. Although the piece was originally crafted to honor Archduke Rudolph's installation as Bishop of Olmütz, the composer's vision to create an epic, grand piece of music led to its delayed premiere, far surpassing the occasion's requirements. Missa Solemnis, or Solemn Mass, structures itself around the two essential parts of a Mass service, the proper and the ordinary. Following the Mass's subparts such as the Kyrie, which extols God's mercy, and the Gloria, where God's omnipotence and grandeur are praised, Beethoven meticulously adheres to the service's format but expands well beyond its standard scope. The work offers insight into Beethoven's personal spirituality, balancing on a tightrope between the humanism of the Enlightenment and the mysticism of the Romantics. Although raised as a Catholic and participating in church services during his youth, Beethoven seemed more intrigued by Missa Solemnis's formal potential, blending religion with his love for musical experimentation. Missa Solemnis bursts at the seams with fugues, traditionally present within a Mass service but reaching new heights in Beethoven's rendition. Through elaborate and extended fugues, the composer showcases unprecedented instrumentation choices, such as assigning flute trills to symbolize the Holy Spirit's dove wings. Dramatic and compelling, Missa Solemnis ultimately resolves with a grounded and peaceful finale. While some of Beethoven's previous ambitious works received mixed reactions, Missa Solemnis's beauty and grandeur garnered widespread appreciation. Still, it's worth noting the challenges Beethoven faced in bringing this ambitious masterpiece to life. He devoted an exceptional amount of time to create the piece for Archduke Rudolph, his dear friend and loyal patron. Remarkably, Beethoven also dedicated his energy to the now iconic Ninth Symphony, completing it at the same time as Missa Solemnis. Both works premiered together on May 7, 1824, featuring performances of the Kyrie, Credo, and Agnus Dei from the Massachusetts. Considering that Beethoven's health was in decline during this period, his dedication to these masterworks is a testament to his incredible passion and commitment to his craft. In Missa Solemnis, Beethoven explores the depths of his spirituality while delving into the musical constraints set by conventional Mass compositions. The result is a breathtaking work that seamlessly merges the composer's brilliant mind with the timelessness of religious expression. Therein lies the genius of Ludwig van Beethoven, his ability to weave together emotion, complexity, and innovative creativity to produce something truly transcendent. Beethoven's unwavering vision. Despite his declining health and personal turmoil in 1826, Beethoven remained dedicated to his musical pursuits, pushing the boundaries of convention in his compositions. He was deeply committed to works like the String Quartet, Op. 130, even when they confounded audiences. Ultimately, his resolute belief in his creations led to the deserved recognition of his visionary talent, which continues to resonate today. By 1826, Ludwig van Beethoven was considered by many to be a disheveled, unhealthy man. Encounters with him in public revealed an unkempt, harried appearance with a propensity for rambling conversations. By year's end, his declining health left him bedridden. However, 1826 was not solely marked by Beethoven's deteriorating state. He was, in fact, still deeply engaged with his music and the loved ones who remained by his side. Although his relationship with his nephew, Karl, took a turn for the worse when the young man attempted suicide, Beethoven nonetheless continued to focus intensely on his work. During this time, Beethoven completed a commission for a series of string quartets for his loyal patron, Prince Nicholas Galitzin. While the prince had initially requested only 3 quartets, Beethoven composed 5 between 1822 and 1826. Among them, the String Quartet, Op. 130, stands as a testament to the composer's innovative spirit. Never one to adhere strictly to traditional structures, Beethoven experimented with each of his commissioned quartets. Traditionally featuring 4 movements, Beethoven's compositions often contained more, with one boasting 5, another 6, and yet another, 7. Even when following the typical 4-movement framework, Beethoven stretched these pieces with grand and experimental components that effectively blurred the lines between movements. A prime example, the six-movement string quartet, Op. 130, plays with the concept of endings from its very beginning, opening with notes that feel more like a finale than an introduction. This motif culminates in a profound fugue that, upon its premiere, left audiences bewildered. Rather than deter Beethoven, however, this initial reaction only reinforced his confidence in the piece. He maintained that the quartet would someday resonate with listeners, and history would prove him right. Over time, appreciation for Beethoven's late quartets expanded beyond a limited circle of connoisseurs and established him as a forward-thinking musical pioneer. Following his death on March 26, 1827, Beethoven's visionary legacy only continued to grow, securing his place in history as a genius who remained unyielding to the very end.
In Beethoven, A Life in 9 Pieces, Laura Tunbridge provides a vivid and compelling overview of the legendary composer's life, examining 9 compositions that marked crucial moments in his journey. This book not only demystifies Beethoven's complex musical style, but also illuminates the personal experiences, relationships, and social forces that shaped his career. From his early beginnings in Bonn's court to the final years of his life in Vienna, Beethoven pushed musical boundaries and challenged conventions, creating an enduring legacy that would forever change the music landscape. With engaging storytelling, Tunbridge instills a newfound appreciation for the maestro's remarkable achievements, giving readers a profound understanding of the man behind the masterpieces.